Habari gani, karibuni. I am feeling those drums in that intro today. Love that music. Welcome. Thank you for being here to our Kumbukeni family. We are joined again today by one of our friends and brothers. We're looking forward to the conversation. Again, I am Nduku, a Black African woman that is fed up with the imperialists, the exploitation, and the disregard for African affairs. And I am deciding to join my brothers to do something about it. So welcome everyone, my brothers. If you can please introduce yourselves, and then we will let Dr. Gnaka Lagoke introduce himself and start us off.
Oh, yes. Good evening, or as we say in Yoruba, kudedewi. My name is Adesoji, reaching you from the belly of the beast, the mother of imperialism, the land that gave you all the language you're about to start conversing today.
Allimadi said yes.
Hope you do it justice. And yes, welcome to Kumbukeni. Over to you, Brother Milton.
Yes. Karibuni, sisters and brothers, comrades, friends. Welcome to our global weekly university. Milton Allimadi speaking from the United States of America.
Chuo Kikuu cha Kumbukeni?
Yes, that's nice. In Kiswahili. Ndio. The remaining declining empire. Mm-hmm. The U.S. is going through the stages that once Great Britain went through, and we are witnessing it live in our generation. Karibuni. So today we will focus on the transitions going on in West Africa and the message it sends to the entire African continent and the world. Karibuni.
I am loving your shirt, Allimadi. I have to say that. I am loving that shirt. Dr. Lagoke, thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself to the family.
Oh, yeah. My name is Gnaka Lagoke. I'm an Ivorian, and I'm an assistant professor of history and Pan-African studies at Lincoln University.
Asante. And I want to say thank you to you for joining me on Friday. That was so nice of you. And thank you to everyone who joined us all on Friday. That was great. Dr. Lagoke, we're speaking Niger today. So talk to us about Niger, please.
Okay, thank you. Niger is a West African country known or believed to be one of the poorest in the world, and then which is one of the 5 world producers of uranium, and the country experienced a number of military coups in the past, and then recently on July the 26th, 2023, there was a military coup organized by Abdurrahman Chani, who was the head of the Presidential Guard, and then who deposed the democratically elected President Bazoum. And then I am using the expression that everyone is using in order to justify the imperative of a military intervention to go and restore constitutional order. And then it has been an uproar. Many people in different parts of Africa, and also in different parts of the world, are opposing the military intervention of the West African Economic Community called ECOWAS, and then activated or pushed by the French government led by Emmanuel Macron. And then we saw ourselves in the midst of a big controversy, and with people with different positions, with dissenting views on whether or not to go and then do a war to restore a president who was deposed in a bloodless coup d'etat. So this is the introduction for the conversation.
Okay, so maybe I should have our comrade react to the BBC's analysis of what is going on.
Yes, please.
So let me just read very quickly 3 short graphs, just a few sentences each. Western nations had looked to Niger as a bulwark against further disorder and spreading Russian influence in the region. It hosts French and US military bases, and before the coup, was seen as a key partner in the fight against the Islamist insurgencies in the region. The July 2023 military coup has plunged the Sahel into further uncertainty after similar takeover in neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali. Mali's decision to deploy Russia's Wagner Group mercenaries triggered France's troop and diplomatic withdrawal from the country and the winding down of operations of the 13,000 strong UN peacekeeping mission, MINUSMA. And then the final paragraph. Bazoum had welcomed those forces to Niamey as part of a renewed strategy to buffer Niger and other West African states from the destabilizing effects of violence by Islamic State and Al-Qaeda militants. His removal by General Tiani threatens to scuttle these partnerships. So this is the BBC's analysis of what is going on.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you
Take
think?
any part of it and explain
Okay.
to our global family that this is not how you see it.
But this is how this, I'm glad. One of the things I like about the crisis in Niger is that we can see the Europeans openly saying why they're so interested in Africa. They use, even when they did when they undertook the colonial agenda, they said they wanted to civilize us. You remember?
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
And they wanted to Christianize us. This is what they used to say. And then until the crisis in Niger, they used to say that they were in the Sahel or in Africa because they wanted to fight against the terrorism.
Right.
And because there were so many groups there. This is what they used to say. Most of the time, they were not talking about their geostrategic interest in Africa. And then most of the time, they were not saying that they were in Africa to exploit Africa. Most of the time, they're not saying that they were there for the economic interest of the Europeans. Most of the time, they were not saying that. But now, all of a sudden, when they saw the trend from Mali, Burkina, even a little bit to a lesser extent, Guinea, when they saw that there is like a new wave of African nationalism, and then there is a new wave of an alliance between African leaders or African masses and Russia / Wagner, then they started panicking, and now they're openly saying things that we knew already, that it was not so much about Africa, it was not so much about helping Africa or Christianize Africa or bringing development to Africa, but it was about exclusively the interest of the Europeans.
Correct.
They don't want to lose ground in Africa. Wagner is a threat to them. Russia is back in Africa. Russia is a threat to them. Therefore, anything that they can do, to preserve their presence, this is what they're doing. That's why I like that quotation. I have seen similar quotations. I've seen similar statements by French political leaders. Even Macron himself. Macron himself said that they will go there to protect what? The French citizens, the French military people who work like the diplomatic corps,
Right.
and also the French interest.
Right.
And then so I saw one mayor in France saying on TV, we have to stay in Niger because we do not. We have to be there for the sake of our economic independence and economic sovereignty. This is what they're saying now publicly. So I thank you for that the BBC assessment. It is different from what we see. The movement in Africa, it is about the economic sovereignty of Africa. It is about the independence of Africa. It is about Africa having the right to diversify its partners. It is about justice, freedom, and independence.
Okay, so before I come back to you, sister, there's just one part of the quotes that I would like Professor
Okay.
Comrade Lagoke to take it again. No, you heard it, but because they take agency away from Africans and Africa, as if Africans cannot initiate something on their own. So listen to this part, how clever they are. Mali's decision to deploy Russia's Wagner Group mercenaries triggered France's troop and diplomatic withdrawal.
Yeah, I heard that one.
From the country.
Yeah, I heard that.
I'm happy they're withdrawing.
As if it was a French decision to do so, and Mali had nothing to do with it.
No. I heard it, but if you want me to go that way, but listen, the article, what they say, it is true.
It's true.
But they say it is not. No.
But explain to listeners.
Yeah, it is true. This is what I was saying. The way we observe the European or the Westerners, because it happened already in Syria, and it is happening in Ukraine, and then wherever the Russians go, it is a frustration for the Westerners.
Exactly.
And then the French president said it, and that's why the quotation of the BBC is accurate. Even though the Malians told the French to leave,
yes,
it was not in the beginning what the Malians did. The French were the one who said that if you deal with Wagner or if you deal with the Russians, we are leaving.
Right.
And then the Malians say, okay, go now. And they did not want to go.
Okay.
So that's why these quotations, of course, they're not. It's not like they may deny us the ability, to undertake things. But here, that statement is accurate.
Okay.
And the Malians in the beginning did not expect the French as soon as they came. Remember, it has been a process when they did the first coup. Assimi Goïta was not the leader.
Right.
They say, you have to put into place a civilian government. So what the Malians did, I forgot the name of the guy. They went to go and they looked for a former chief of the army of Mali who was retired. They brought the guy and they put him in power.
For 1 year.
For 1 year, so you see. And then as he was there with some civilians, those who wanted to bring real change in Mali, they realized that that person and some other ones were in collusion with the French. This Goïta has to take things in his hands, to be the leader he is today.
For a second time, okay.
The second time, and even when he did it, he was not rushing to expel the French. But when they saw that, because the first coup, there was already a tension between pro-French and pro-Russians. And now when the pro-Russian won with the second coup, the French started blackmailing. I'm sorry, I don't like that word. But they started whitemailing.
We understand.
Yes,
whitemailing.
They started whitemailing. The people like in Mali. So that's why that statement is accurate.
Okay.
Even if later on the Malians took the initiative to do many other great things, as they expelled the French, they suspended the airlines, like Air France, recently, and many other things that they did. So that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, very good. But your clarification actually makes it much more sensible.
Yeah, thank you.
Asante, back to you, sister.
Yeah. For me, that's them talking about destabilizing effects, right? The BBC's report talking about destabilizing effects. And my question is, what about the destabilizing effects of Western influence in Africa for all the centuries, right? For all the decades. They've been there destabilizing using their, what do you call it? Decorum and their gentlemanness while destroying Africa. What about those?
No, in fact, in Niger it was worse. And Professor can tell us this, comrade. At the time of independence, they banned the political party that had voted no to maintaining, to remain in the so-called French community, and effectively made it a one-party state from the very beginning, and supported the party that had voted yes, and he became a dictator from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's the same thing they did in most of the Francophone countries. In Ivory Coast, for instance, there was multi-party system before 1960, and then when Houphouët-Boigny won, who had the blessing of the French, most of the other political parties disappeared, or many other things, by cracking down dissenting views. And then when they were presenting Kwame Nkrumah as he was opposing the West as a dictator, They will not say the same thing about Houphouët-Boigny
Right.
or many other leaders like in the Francophone world that they were controlling. So it has been always the same game. But to go back to Nduku's statement, for them it's not destruction. What they did to Africa is not destruction. They brought civilization.
Exactly.
They brought Christianization. They help Africans get rid of those devilish
Pagans.
The
idols,
savages.
the devilish idols, and then they brought education, even though they were formatting the minds and the hearts of the Africans. And then they also, that's a concept that we always do not talk too much about, and I think you guys are familiar with it. Pax Romana or Pax Britannica or Pax Americana, which is about that colonial imperial order led by an imperial power in the name of the superiority of the power of that empire, and then that order. This is what people call Pax Britannica, Pax Romana, and Pax Americana. So for them, there is no destruction. It's the order, imperial order. And but now, people say, you know what? We want to disrupt that Pax Americana. So this is what people are doing today.
Adesoji, do you have any thoughts on that BBC piece?
Yes, something in line with what Brother Milton said earlier, which was when Niger got their independence, the party that actually voted to discontinue their relationship with France was demoted. Something similar happened in Guinea. But the guy who won in this is where it gets funny. The guy who won in Niger, his name being Hamari Diori, he ruled Niger from 1960 to 1974 until things got interesting. He got a visit from the president of France, Pompidou, in 72. And just as the president was landing, there was an anti-French demonstration. Guess what the president did? The president sided with the students. And what did he do? The company, Sommer, which mines uranium in Niger, got lambasted by the students, and the president then supported. 6 months later, the French did what they normally would do. Who is this guy? And they got rid of him. So that was the first coup. Now, fast forward.
So
now,
led by the French.
Of course.
Yes.
So fast forward now. So what Brother Professor Lagoke is speaking to actually ties into the narrative that the West will hold. We want you to see this Pax, in French's case, it's Francafrique.
Yeah, France Afrique.
Yeah. So we want you to see France as the benevolent colonizer, the one who has given you everything, the kind one. I mean, look at you. You're speaking the language of love. You're speaking French, And like Senghor will say, Senghor said, no, we don't want to be Africans. We want to be Black Frenchmen. That's the mindset. So how do you see our people now waking up? Would you say if they see someone like Senghor at the moment, what would they do to him?
Yeah. So today, one thing that is important to say is that we are not going to get rid of the French influence overnight. I want people to understand. Because I want people to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. Because what the Europeans have done, and which is so great, is that there are some people who were born Black and who love the Europeans so much. And then they want to keep that peace of mind or that peaceful interaction with the Europeans, even if it is to the detriment of the interests of the masses in Africa. So I have seen many people, when you are For instance, criticizing, I'm just saying criticizing,
Mm.
and then using maybe some harsh words. I have seen Africans, particularly in the Francophone world, Macron does not even know them.
Okay about them.
Macron does not even know. If he's a care, at least he knows that they exist. Does not even know that they exist. They're not even informants, but they send themselves to defend the French. There is a young man. There were three people, like in the Francophone community. Three. I'm going to mention the names. Very popular, like in the Francophone world. Because of what they do. One is Kemi Seba, citizen of France and Benin, and another one is Franklin Yamsi from Cameroon, French citizen in France, and another one is a lady. Her name is Nathalie Yamb. She's a Swiss Cameroonian, and she used to live in Ivory Coast. And then those three are great voices, like in the Francophone world. They never killed anyone, but I have seen people say, yes, Pan-Africanism is not about insulting the French. But come on. Like, and first of all, they're not even insulting the French president, but even if they were using like a harsh language, can you compare the language that they're using with the rape, the killing, the exploitation of African and African people and African resources? Can we compare those two?
Of course not.
But you can see, I'm telling you, you can see some Africans being so offended and upset that those three people are using some language that they consider harsh.
Right.
This is how you can see the real effect of the French colonial system mentality in the DNA of those Africans. Now, today, things are changing. Like one of my, I think it's a Nigerian, one of my friends or professors said, "Oh, finally, those Francophones, you are waking up now. Finally, finally, you guys are waking up." So, but one thing people don't know, even though we have those leaders, people have always resisted. Always. I belong to the generation of those people in Africa in the 90s. We were students. We take to the streets. This is how our generation, with the struggle of people like Gbagbo in Ivory Coast, Abdoulaye Wade in Senegal, Alpha Oumar Konaré in Mali, in some other ones. This is how our generation ended or contributed to end the one-party system rule in Africa. So people will be always fighting. But people have the feeling that, okay, because our currency is still controlled by the French, people are not fighting. People have been fighting. People have been killed. People have been in prison.
Yeah.
It is not easy. But now it is another age of that Pan-African consciousness. And in the age of the social media, that's why many people are paying attention and they have the feeling that people in Africa, in Francophone Africa, are waking up. But it's a little bit different. But people have always, they have tried to always free themselves from the French.
All right. So we have some updates on Niger, right? Yesterday, a delegation from ECOWAS went into Niger. They met with the head of the junta, Abdurrahman Tiani, and they met with President Mohamed Bazoum. And they are currently entertaining or accommodating, I should say, diplomacy, right? Talks instead of military intervention. Then we have the AU earlier in the week that said no to war. And ECOWAS said, yes, we're still going to continue talking about war. And they're talking about a set date that has been set. They're not giving it a date that has been set for the military to go into Niger. The junta reached out to the Nigerian people and requested people sign up to support in case of invasion with non-military, duties. And people came, like there were lots of Nigerians who came to answer that call to action. So speak a bit about those new updates, what's going on. The fact that Nigerians seem to be supporting the junta.
Oh yeah, it's of course I think I said the last time when I was on Milton's show on WBAI. One thing people are some people are not overlooking is that those military leaders may be opportunists. They may be taking advantage of the trend, but the crux of the matter is that there is a new age of Pan-Africanism, and then Africans, there is a great number of Africans who are deconstructing some Western paradigms, for instance, about democracy. So if in a country like in Niger, with the exploitation of oil and uranium, and the country, 70% of the country does not have electricity. And I heard that there is a pipeline that is going to go from Nigeria through Niger, through Benin, through Algeria, to serve gas in Europe. And they have already, based on what I know, they have already started the construction of that pipeline. And yet 70% of people in Niger do not have electricity.
So they're going through African countries with no electricity to take electricity up there.
Yes.
And this is supported by ECOWAS.
Well, of course, ECOWAS, Nigeria, Niger, the Yusuf Mahamadou, we talk about Bazoum, yes, and then Patrice Talon of Benin. This is myself. I was not so much aware of that. I said, but seriously, they say yes, and I did some research. This is what they're doing. So it becomes. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to in line with the question you're asking, if it's going through Algeria doesn't really like the French. So why would they allow a competitive pipeline?
No. This is the bad business now. This is the bad business. And you know how they do. They will show you that it is in your interest. So this is what they're doing. So that's also something that, we think it does. I think it does not make sense, seriously. Yeah, because it is only now, you can correct me, it is only now that Aliko Dangote built a refinery in Nigeria.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, and then even Algeria, when the wars last year, when the Europeans, Germany and some other ones, they wanted the Algerian gas, for instance. Algeria said, you know what, you can help us develop our infrastructure instead of pushing us, to sell our gas to you.
Right.
So in other words, Algeria needs some investment.
Yes.
So instead of doing that like a heavy investment with some other African countries to produce electricity on the continent of Africa, they're not doing that. Somehow they want quick cash from the construction of that pipeline. That's another thing that does not make too much sense. But the reality is that as people are doing what we just described, we want to see what we're seeing today before ECOWAS to go to stick to the question. What we're seeing with ECOWAS today is that they know that many in Africa, like Sister Nduku said, many are opposing the military intervention. Somehow they don't want to lose face. As they almost say brother Tinubu. I almost said that. But Tinubu,
I'm surprised you're calling him brother, but go on.
Well, he corrected himself.
Oh,
I correct myself, but he's still a brother. Not in the sense of the brotherhood that I have with Milton, but he's still a brother. or to speak like Kwame Nkrumah, he's an unpatriotic son of Africa, but he's still a brother.
I like that one.
He's still a brother. So that's a Nkrumah. So many people do not want the war, but he doesn't want to lose face. And guys, listen to this. That's also an aspect of the conversation that I discovered not long ago. I've seen a former minister of foreign affairs of Nigeria defending the rationale for a war, arguing that it will be a way for Nigeria to exert, to affirm, to assert its power. Seriously. So this is the context. But in the meantime, in Niger, decided that, what, we are willing to, based on what I heard, it looks like the president of Togo was an instrument for the junta to establish negotiation. He's not the only one. He played the role. This is what people said. And so now the junta, they met with those ECOWAS delegates.
Yeah.
But the good thing about yesterday is this. The Europeans were making so much noise that Bazoum health conditions are deteriorating, people are fearing for his life, the same propaganda that they do. And then many people were repeating the same thing. But yesterday, we saw like a handsome and healthy Bazoum.
Lovely picture.
The felt that standing there, meeting with people, and all of it. So by showing Bazoum, so we know that everything that they were saying, it was a bunch of lies, a propaganda.
Right.
The same Europeans who worry so much about democracy, they are barely talking about Ousmane Sonko, the leader of the opposition in Senegal,
Right.
whose party has been banned by Macky Sall, who, by the way, wanted to have a third term in Senegal, and then who banned Macky Sall political party, Ousmane Sonko's political party called PASTEF, and Ousmane Sonko is in prison and is on hunger strike for 20 days because he wants to have the right to feed himself with the dishes cooked, by his family.
Right.
But they will not give him that right because certainly he's afraid of being poisoned. He's on hunger strike for 20 days. How many European media are talking about that?
Zero.
So that's the double standard that Africans are fed off, and that's why people are taking to the street or like denouncing the duplicity of the Westerners. So that would be my answer to that question.
All right. So,
Brother Milton, Allimadi, I mean, and Adesoji, I saw you both responding as
no,
Dr. Lagoke was.
I need to quickly respond to what Brother Lagoke said. When you said the foreign minister for Nigeria is
former foreign, not the current one.
Did you say former or current?
Former. I think I saw it too. I think he wears a very expensive suit and even a bow tie, I think.
Yeah.
Bolaji Akemi?
Certainly, there were 2 or 3 people who
He even dresses the part.
Right.
Professor Bolaji Akemi?
Yes, Professor, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. He speaks the way he dresses, right?
Yes. Okay. Now, ironically, he eulogizes Thomas Sankara a lot. Made even more worse by the fact that when Thomas Sankara was killed, he actually lost his job because he stood up to the head of state who did not want to send a delegation to his burial.
Very ironic.
Very ironic. So when you mentioned him, I was like, who are you talking about? Him.
Yes.
And then I just want to quickly read this. You just fill the gaps where he says country, right? It is of great historical significance that the first extraordinary session of the Assemblies of Heads of State of Government to be held since the founding of the Organization of African Unity 12 years ago is being held on the liberation of Africa. X country is merely exercising the excuse being used by those who cannot reconcile themselves with the momentous victory of the forces of African liberation to assert their neo-colonialist ambition on the continent. X country merely provides the occasion to recreate the 19th century partition of Africa into the sphere of influence where the predominant consideration will be the interest of the big powers without any consideration for the inalienable rights of Africans. This was a head of state of Nigeria, General Muritala Mohammed.
Yeah, I heard he was a good one, right?
6 months after this speech,
he was gone.
He was gone. He was killed.
Yeah, I heard about it. I need to read that. I need to read more about him.
I mean, the emotion that Nigerians will be supporting the invasion of another sovereign country on behalf. Clearly, you can see there is no ambiguity that this is a neo-colonialist venture. Why?
Adesoji, could you hold that book up real quick again?
It's titled The Hurricane.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that to quickly 1 minute on from this one of the things that sometimes people don't understand why the Europeans they're doing that. Sometimes people don't understand. First of all, because they believe that, in
Just
imperialism.
easier.
Yeah, they believe in imperialism. And then with imperialism, you want to secure, you want to preserve your interests, whatever you can.
Correct.
Yeah, even recently, when the Great China, when Xi Jinping changed the constitution to be there again for a third term, I read articles. You will be surprised to see how the Europeans were hoping that it does not do what it did, because they know he's a nationalist, and they're hoping to see somebody who does not care too much about the interests of China being the head of China. The same thing that they did with Russia, with Boris Yeltsin and Gorbachev. So let alone if they can act like that for China and Russia, then it will be normal for them to do that for those African leaders. So Murtala Mohammed and all the leaders that we have that are not serving the interests of the European, somehow they will do everything possible so that they can get rid of them. So that is the tragedy also of the way we know in the world in which we live, led by the imperial mindset.
All right, so Comrade Lagoke, I have this broader question for you. And even if we read the what the transitions going on in Niger, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and embrace it in the most positive way that we can. When it comes to the issue of changing our economic relationship with the West, with the industrialized world, what Rodney used to call changing our location as dependent peripheral states in the global system, right? We have that center periphery relationship. Isn't it true that it's going to take more than these three countries? Or are we saying that these three countries might spark similar changes in other African countries so that at some point they have a core who are then able to say enough is enough? We want to end this economic exploitation. How do you assess? What is your reading?
Yeah. Milton, that's your question or somebody asked the question?
That's
No,
his. That's
question,
your brother's question.
And this also gives you the opportunity, if you are theoretically offering advice to the leaders in these three countries and other African countries, what would you say to them?
Okay, thank you. I see two questions there. Let me make sure I don't forget them. Very important. The first one, of course, what we see today, believe it or not, like I said, there was Ivory Coast in 2010, 2011. 2012, there was Senegal. Because I want to go quick, I don't want to waste too much time on that on what I'm saying. And then 2014, we had Burkina Faso. And then there was also the resistance against the neo-colonial agenda 2015 in Burkina Faso. And then 4 or 5 years later, then we saw the series of coups in the Sahel because people, the bad governance, corruption, and the civilian leaders incapable of dealing with with terrorism, and at the same time they were puppets of the French neo-colonialism. For instance, in the case of Mali, we had all those troops there, those missions there. How many countries? 12 or 15 countries,
Right.
and then Mali was still suffering from terrorism. So people say, you know what, we need to do something. People take it to the street. In Niger, they did in Niger, they did in Burkina, they did in a little bit in Guinea against the change of constitution, and they did that in Mali. And this is how today we saw the rise of those leaders in power. So now Mali took the conversation to the next level by sparking, by consolidating that revolutionary movement. The way sanction, they cannot have access to the monies like in the French, in the West African Central Bank, everything that you can imagine, and Mali is still surviving for the last 2 or 3 years. And one piece of information is that there was an officer in Niger who was sent by the president to go and meet with the officers of the military guys in Mali. It was after that meeting that Bazoum demoted, the general of the army.
Journey.
Yeah, so people have to know that. So somehow Mali is like, it's not like, I'm not exaggerating, even though Assimi he did not have maybe the ideological training of Kwame Nkrumah. But today, Mali is like seen as that country that is giving so much dignity and hope, to Africans, particularly in Francophone Africa. Assimi Goïta has a team. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was the ambassador of Mali here to the United States. I see the Prime Minister, even though he was not somebody who could win an election like in Mali, the guy stood to the occasion. And then he has the narrative, even though he's not the greatest Pan-Africanist we know in Mali and some other people. So they understood that for their own survival, what they're doing is to spread. That's why when ECOWAS wanted to go and attack Niger, they said that if you attack Niger, you're attacking us, because Niger needs to survive. Niger needs to be on the trend for Mali's revolution to prosper.
Yeah.
Correct.
But of course, he has to spread across the continent. 4 countries is not sufficient out of
Correct.
54.
Mm-hmm.
So we want that mindset, that vision, to spread across the continent of Africa. So this is one thing that we need to do for the leaders in order to establish or to consolidate that new wave of Pan-African consciousness in the 21st century in the age of the social media. So I think I responded to Milton's first question. Second question, I have the feeling that I can allow myself to say that, and it's not that, even though I respect all of them, the young men in Mali, in Assimi Goïta, there are things can be better though. Seriously, things can be better, and that's why we are hoping to be around them, to meet with them, to tell them that you are doing the right thing. People are, if you really follow the conversation in Francophone Africa, listen. People are just sharing the videos of Abdoulaye Diop, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mali, the Prime Minister of Mali. I just shared that on my Facebook page like maybe 1 hour ago. Something he said in French. Somebody translated that. He gave like a direct address to Alassane Ouattara and then to Macky Sall, telling them that you should not be the puppets of the Westerners.
Wow.
That, yes, he said what we want to be able to decide of the price of cobalt in Congo.
Yeah.
But not in Paris, like in Belgium. We want to discuss the price of cocoa in Abidjan, but not in London. So listen, maybe he's not a great Pan-Africanist, but the guy today, we can see him as a great contributor to the advancement of Pan-Africanism. And so this is the conversation. Now, why I'm talking about is Maiga Sugar, who is the Prime Minister, because why I'm talking about this statement. Because today the conversation is about the economic sovereignty of Africa.
Correct.
And then, yes, people can they can ask the military bases to leave Africa. It's a legitimate battle or struggle.
Looking forward to that.
But for me, there is something that is more important than that.
Correct.
Today we talk about the uranium of Niger. But we're not even talking about the oil, which is exploited by the Chinese or by some other European countries. That is just what Niger. We want to have more information about how the gold of Mali was exploited by those companies. We want to see the reality about how cobalt is exploited in Congo. So we, scholars, activists, people of the street, we need to go and put pressure on our leaders so that we can have access to the information about how those resources of Africa are being exploited.
I agree.
So, yeah, so that's why if I to one day have an opportunity to meet some of them, you know what you did already, it is great. But listen, there's a company called Orange. I think, I don't know if I spoke about that last time. It's the mobile company that controls the mobile telephone in Ivory Coast.
Right.
It is created by the French company,
correct,
which took over Ivory Coast telecommunications sector. in the name of the privatization of
Free trade.
The World Bank.
Yes.
Free trade.
Yes, but say if you go to different African countries, you have the orange almost everywhere. But when you call Ivory Coast and from Ivory Coast you call Senegal, it is as if you were calling Sri Lanka. So we want to see how we have to take those, we have to urge and force those companies to go towards the integration of the African market. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
So these are all the things that we want to suggest to those who are doing great work, but we can do better. So that will be this. That's the answer to your second question, Milton.
Agree, 100%. Thank you, Corey.
For Adesoji, you wanted to say something?
No, go first, then I'll come.
Yeah. So my one question, you talked about the French West African Central Bank, right? And we all know that what that does is the monies made in West Africa apparently are sent to that bank. That is where the money is kept. So for me, ECOWAS has the money that is generated in West Africa is kept in that bank.
Yes.
Right? Which is in France.
Yes.
And controlled by France.
Yes.
So my question is, if ECOWAS has been in existence this long, why have they not said no to that? And part of their mandate is developing the economy of that area. Why are they not bringing that money back to Africa to help Africa, those African nations, at least its member states?
Yeah, but ECOWAS, it is not. My point is that this is what I always tell people when I meet African politicians. Even though there are things that they do I may not like, that are denounced, but like I said, it's not easy to be a leader of an African country.
True.
We have to understand that. Today we talk about Tinubu like that, because we revolted, but Tinubu is a human being, and then he can be faulty, he can have flaws, he can have weaknesses in his journey. This is what they do. They exploit our weaknesses. Do you understand? But even by telling people, if you don't stop the coup in Niger, you're going to be the next one to be overthrown.
Right.
Do you understand? As a human being, you may be tempted. You may be tempted to say, you know what? Maybe I need to do something to stop it. So why I'm saying that is that our leaders try. Maybe some of them do not try enough, but people have tried. And then now we see today that they have tried. You were talking to me about Allimadi Diori, and you were talking about many other leaders in different parts of Africa. They tried. If you're not assassinated, you're going to go to prison. You're going to be destroyed, and many other things. So this is what they do. That's why some of the leaders, they say, you know what, we need to play safe. So in the case of ECOWAS, people have tried to establish a common currency. ECOWAS, and the name of the currency is ECO for ECOWAS. And
what has happened to that?
Now listen. Listen, my friend. It's not. Listen to this. For the last, they've been working on that. Anytime people think that they're closed, to close the deal, you always see the interference of the European, always. But the last thing that people are not linking to the conversation about Niger is this. 2 years ago, ECOWAS, Nigeria, Ghana, they say, you know what? Maybe it is time for us, to launch that West African currency called ECOWAS, called ECO. Guess what, Sister Nduku, Nduku and brothers Milton and Adesoji, Alassane Ouattara, president of Ivory Coast, he sent himself in mission to go and then somehow ask the Francophone African countries to come together and adopt a version of the ECO different from the one the Nigerian, the Ghanaian, the Sierra Leonean were putting together. And with the support of the French government, Macron. And then, because when they saw that there was a popular campaign, like a campaign against the CFA franc, launched by many intellectuals spoke about it, they denounced it. For years, many books written on that. But in 2017, there is a young man I mentioned, Kemi Seba. He was the one who launched that campaign against the CFA franc. And many people started talking more about it. So when they saw that the CFA franc became unpopular, then they thought that they need to replace it by ECO, not by another currency, by the very ECO that our economists have been working on for 30 years. And then they said they were going to launch the ECO, but today, people in Africa, Francophone Africa, they're still using the CFA franc. So I just wanted you to see that sometimes it's not like our leaders are always doing what the European wants, but sometimes it's not easy because it's a permanent battle, for independence, for freedom, even to have the right to do what you have to do for your own people.
Right. I just want to add to your response based on Sister Nduku's question. I met a professor at Howard University a few weeks ago, and he was telling me the exact same thing that Comrade Lagoke just said.
So what's his name?
I don't know if we should use his name.
What is he from? Where is he from? Ivory Coast?
He's from West Africa.
Milton is being safe.
Maybe my friend. That's why I'm asking him.
He said he's had conversations.
He'll whisper it later.
With African presidents.
Okay,
who have told him exactly what you just said. That Western ambassadors come to their office and lecture them like they're schoolboys.
Yeah, thank you.
And say, if you don't do this and this and this, these are the consequences.
Yeah, let me add something on. Yeah, seriously, one thing I'm suggesting also to all of us here, like I said, even though we upset with what Tinubu is doing, like I said, though, we still it's not that I want to do like King. We still have to have that compassion for our leaders, seriously, because
the grace, give them grace.
When there was the war in Ukraine, when the war in Ukraine started, the Europeans were looking for allies. And then I don't think African journalists are reporting on that aspect of interaction that the Europeans have with our leaders. The ambassadors themselves, the ministers of the European countries, the Blinkens, the Macrons, and the Blairs and the Camerons, they are themselves calling people. Right. I remember. I don't know if it's Tony Blair or Cameron. When they were dealing with Mugabe, there is a video of Thabo Mbeki on YouTube saying that I don't know if Cameron or Tony Blair, how they called him to urge him to go and try and overthrow Mugabe.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah. So this is what they do on a regular basis. Listen, my friends, if somebody comes and asks you 100 things, I'm asking you a question. Do you think that you're going to do no to all the 100 things? I'm asking you.
If today I was the president, I mean, I'm willing to take risks. I'm a different type of person, and the West called me, and I'm trying to do for Africa. I'll say no. But go ahead.
Well, I'm asking the question. I say 100 times.
I will say no. First of all, I won't even pick up the phone. They won't get a chance to ask 100 times.
Yeah. Okay. I said Milton may say, let me try and do two.
Two out of the 100. I think because you have to think of the consequences.
So
when your country, sometimes removing you can plunge the entire country into bloodshed.
So when you do the one that you decide to do, listen to this, the one that you decide to do can be a war against Niger. This is what Tinubu is doing.
Yeah. Okay, hold on 1 minute. So we're talking about a situation where our leaders are held captive, right, by these Western interests. And we're talking about it as if we cannot do something about it. But Nkrumah is saying if we all unite, if all 54 nations unite and stand against these Western influences and kick them out, you have power in that. So why are we as Africans not doing that?
No, again, this is what I'm saying. It is because they know that unity is the key to our survival. That's why they are opposing, they're dividing us. Do you understand? That this is what they're doing in the case of Nigeria by playing on the national pride of some Hausas or some Yorubas. You know what, Nigeria, you're an hegemon in West Africa. The best way for you to express your power is to show to those people in Niger that they're nothing compared to the great Nigeria.
Right.
So Like I said, Nkrumah is right. We need to be united.
Yeah.
But we have our own flaws as human beings. We have our own tribal contentions and tensions. Do you understand? In South Africa, you have the Xhosa people over there and the Zulu. They were about to do a war from 1990 to 1994. Even William Ruto, who in recent years, who has been saying things that many people, we even recommend him for some of the things that he said. But what is democracy in Kenya?
Nope. I went to school in that area where they had tribal wars.
Listen, now, even before why the tribal wars? Why the tribal wars?
Yeah.
Comrades.
Because
I want to qualify something to listeners.
Okay.
Listeners, we have a different dispensation when we use the word tribal. We don't mean it in the European. Oh, there go the African native sense.
Context.
We mean it in the sense of these are different African
ethnic groups.
Okay, please continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay, no problem. So the ethnic, what I wanted to say is that in the case of Kenya, since the independence of the country, and you can correct me, Milton and then
Nduku before Milton. I'm Kenyan, he's Ugandan.
So listen to this. Listen to this. So in the Kenya, we see that there are two ethnic groups that are ruling over Kenya.
Is it true?
The Kalenji and then the Kikuyu.
Actually, three now. But yes.
What is the third one? The third one is
Luo. The Luo.
The
Those
Luo.
three.
Who is the Luo? Who is the Luo?
Raila Odinga, all those people is Luo.
No, Raila Odinga has never been president.
No, he's never. But the three tribes.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to this. That's the point. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
So if Raila Odinga, that people thought was about to win the election, and somehow he was prevented from winning the election, even though he's not one of my heroes. But many of the Kenyans I spoke with, they told me that against Kibaki, Raila Odinga was believed to be the one who was going to win the election.
Yes.
Right.
The people support him.
Yes. Yes. People supported him, but he did not win, and he's the Luo. And then we remember what happened to Tom Mboya. 28, 29.
They have killed the Luos, you're right.
They killed him, who was the chairman of the All Africa People's Conference in Ghana in 1958.
Correct.
So my point is that the way some people, like in Kenya, they think that it can be either a Kalenji or a Kikuyu for 60 years, I don't think it is correct.
It's breaking. I will tell you, it's breaking. In the diaspora groups that I belong to now, that sentiment is breaking, and they're preaching more unity because they're realizing the damage that it's causing.
Right. But I think Lagoke's bigger point is that the enemies of Africa know how to use those.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so that's
and they don't waste time focusing on that.
And so, but the question again is, we as Africans, and Adesoji, you can jump in because I see you haven't said anything yet, but we as Africans, we have to awaken and stand against that. Like, how do we do that? When do we do that? I want to do it, but we need support from our brothers. The four of us can't do it by ourselves. How do we say, pause, we're taking over, we're not having this anymore? This is how we're going to move forward from now on as a collective in Africa.
Well, it just shows you how tremendous the challenges are. It's as Comrade Lagoke said, some of these changes are not going to happen overnight. Nkrumah was very bright, and he had many bright ideas. And we are still having that same conversation today in 2023.
And also just like you mentioned Nkrumah, when they overthrew him, the first thing they did was destroy his records.
They tried. Wow. They tried.
Yeah, I mean,
they tried. They tried.
Do that.
But I'm saying the physical records that he had in Ghana at the time were it not the fact that every time he finished his manuscript, it was in London, which we probably won't have the 14 and 5 pamphlets he wrote. One of our supporters actually gave us she gave us the manual of how it works. When I say that, I'm talking about White Malice, Susan Williams' book.
Right.
It's a window into what Professor Lagoke has been speaking about. The notion that they know the buttons to press. They know who to go to directly.
Yeah.
They know, okay, if I push this person just a bit, that person will be triggered enough to react. When Nkrumah wrote The Challenge of the Congo, one of the key things he said that was Lumumba did not know how to traverse the intricacies of what he was facing in, in what he was facing in the Congo.
Yeah.
And so when it came to question of how does he react, which again goes to what Professor Lagoke is speaking to, is the notion that you have to understand that you're not just playing to one audience. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. And the people even with you in the room, how many of them can you vouch for?
Yeah. The ones that look like you.
Exactly. How many of them can you vouch for? So which also brings us to the issue of money. In French-speaking West Africa, when you mention the Ouattara's movement to change the CFA to ECO, what was he playing on? He knew the people, heard about ECO, but they might not be able to tie it to the fact that it was actually a push by Ghana and Nigeria. But let's get in there first. And who backed him? Macron. The same Macron that has been pushing against the issue of readdressing the agreements, the pact of continuous colonization, will suddenly back a coin. Why? Because he spoke to him to say, listen, I think we have a way out here. So the question to Professor Lagoke would be, how do we counter those narratives in this day, in this age of social media, where we not only need to study what has gone before in order to inform our decisions now and for the future, but how do we disseminate what has gone before so that people are, I'm not saying everybody will sing from the same hymn sheet, but at least you have a practical knowledge of what has transpired. How do we do that?
Yeah, thank you, my brother. It's a beautiful question. Before I continue, I have a friend. When I was a journalist, was one of our great journalists in the country. So I think he's watching the show, and he said,
"Does he want to join us?"
No. I don't know if he can, but he said, "Are we kids? The lady's right." Saying that Nduku, you were right.
Tell him he can join us. Now he can come and join us.
I don't know if he can. I don't know how he will do that. But anyway, one of the things of course, when I was a journalist, like all of us when we were like young or younger, we were all revolted, right? So you denounce, you think that the leaders of Africa, they're not doing the right thing. So I've done that. People who saw me writing, they know I did that. But I was lucky enough because I was born with a great sense of curiosity. Even the people I was writing against, when I had the opportunity to sit down with them, I used to listen, and this is how I discovered another side of the story of the African governance, of the African leadership. I paid attention also to Houphouët-Boigny, who is believed to be somebody who was not as great as Nkrumah in the field of Pan-Africanism, but today people are quoting him in the conversation about Niger. You know why? Because he said one statement. He said that today, the Europeans are doing this in the next 40 years, 50 years, they will not be able, to exploit Africans. There will be a new generation of Africa that is going to rise up against the Europeans. So people are using that today. So all the people, whatever statement people did here and there, they're using that in order to consolidate the narrative. To go straight to your question, I think that we are not, listen to this, and don't be offended. We are not educated enough about what the Europeans do or have done to Africa. We are not.
He's right. I agree 100%.
We need a massive intelligence movement to learn about them.
Before we get that, let's say we are not.
Yeah.
There are some people, because we don't even communicate among ourselves, there are some people sometimes they limit themselves to the understanding of what they think is the reality, and then it is limited. Like I said, I was a journalist. I loved politics. I learned from the people even I was criticizing. I went to school. I talked to African leaders who were in power, and then I tried to put that like in comparison with some other realities. Like I said, if America and the Europeans, they can think or hope to see somebody who's not nationalist in China, the second most important power in the world, if they can hope to see somebody who's not nationalist in Russia,
Right.
can you imagine what they can do to those African leaders?
Correct.
So we need to go and read. We need to inform ourselves about the economic exploitation, about the rationale that justify why they took all those cultural artifacts to the European Museum. We need to understand what they said. It is when we read all those things. And now we spread the information. Today we have the advantage of the social media.
Right.
That's why it is difficult for them to stop the movement. If it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago, listen, they will have killed all the Ndukus, the Adesojis, the Gnakas, and the Miltons.
I keep looking over my back to this day.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah,
All the
so
time.
we are still here.
Yeah.
And then, as we do what we are doing, we have to be convinced that victory is on our side.
Yes, of course.
Because that's one of the problems with Africans. When I was talking about Pan-Africanism in the beginning, I thought that I need to talk about Pan-Africanism from the intellectual perspective. So I come and I said, in 1960, I used to do that. And later on, I realized that, yes, people, they may want to have that knowledge, but there's something about the psyche of Black people. We were defeated mentally.
Right.
And many of us do not even think that we can win any kind of battle against the Europeans.
Correct.
So when I understood that, I combined my knowledge that I share with people, and I try to see in the history of Black people, of Africans, the victories that were won.
Right.
Against slavery, against Jim Crow, like in the Caribbean, all the things that we did. And now, when we revisit our ancestors, then we can have the source of the hope that we need, of the confidence, of the boldness that we need to try and do what we are doing. That's why when I wrote that book about Gbagbo, when I said that Laurent Gbagbo's trial and the indictment of the International Criminal Court, a Pan-African victory, because people could not even think that Gbagbo could go to prison and he could come out of the ICC. And it happened in the 21st century.
Yes.
The same thing with Niger, with Mali. So my point is that we need to be educated. We need to educate ourselves more, and we need to also approach those that we don't even like. Let us approach those leaders and hear from them why they're not doing what we think they should do. Because many of us they're so sure that if they are there tomorrow, they can do better. Why they can't do better? Why after 1963 today, leaders after leaders, many people do the same mistake, or they make the same mistake? Why? Certainly, there is something there that we need to learn more about, that we need to discover. So that
just to piggyback on that quickly, do you think we should put together an organization of Pan-Africanists that this is our mission, to educate and go around Africa educating?
Yes, like I said, though, I've seen people attacking all the African leaders. I do not agree. Listen, this time we started the conversation. ECOWAS, everyone in the beginning, they want to say that ECOWAS, all the leaders, Ouattara wanted to show that all the leaders agreed. It is not true. It is not true. In Nigeria, there's something we did not say. Tinubu, your people said that your election was fraudulent.
Yeah.
It is like before the High Court in Nigeria.
Yep.
The court has not ruled on that yet. And then you want to go and restore democracy in Niger?
He hasn't even put together his government.
Yes, for a bloodless coup d'etat, you want to go and kill people. Seriously. So if we were organized, Milton, don't laugh. If we organized, we said the group we want to put together, we said we want to go and see Tinubu.
Yep.
Some people are doing that, but there is like a disconnect between those who call themselves activists intellectuals and those who are in leadership position in Africa. And we need to be able to change that paradigm. So that's my proposition.
Right. I just want to agree with Comrade Lagoke in terms of we really don't know. We don't know what we are dealing with.
No, we don't.
Many of us have not even read The Prince, Machiavelli. Many of us have not read The Art of War. But much more seriously, many of us have not accessed a single document from the archives of the imperialist countries.
No.
You know? How is that possible? And then you say you want to resist imperialism when you don't know what
you want to rule, you want to rule an African country. Even though I am, I talk more about Nkrumah, even though I did not appreciate some of the choices Ufo Boigny made. But there's one thing I was young. One thing I saw in a newspaper, Jeune Afrique. They say Ufo Boigny, why, you Ivory Coast is the biggest cocoa producer. Why you don't have a chocolate factory in Ivory Coast? I was young. I was so shocked when I read his answer. He said, even if I wanted, the European will not allow. They will not have allowed me, to do so. So that's a confession. So that is this what is happening, and in the case of Francophone African countries, it is even more serious than in the English-speaking countries, because the French, everything that you do in your country, it is first for the French, and if they don't want that, then they will tell you whom to give it to. And listen,
it's so preposterous that we are laughing. No, we are laughing at the pain. Honestly,
yes,
So this, my point is that when I talk like that, I've been talking like that for years.
It's true.
I was young. I did what I have to do. Even before I was 30, what I'm telling you, I have discovered that. And that's why those who know me, even though I was criticizing the regime, I still have some relationship with some people there. And this is how I learned. It is not. I don't know if I shared that with you last time when they wanted to do the devaluation of the CFA franc. Ufo Boigny served the French beyond what you can even imagine, involved in the war against the unit, against the MPLA, involved in many other things in the name of the triumph of the West. Ufo has done all those things. But guess what? There was a time they wanted to devalue the CFA franc. And Ufo Boigny did not want. He was opposing that. For some reason, it's not conspiracy theory. Ufo Boigny, they announced that he was dead on December 7, which was Independence Day. Listen to this. So when we were preparing to do the independence, they announced that the first president was dead.
What year?
1993.
Okay.
So of course there was like power struggle between Ouattara and Bédié. And then January 14, 1994, less than 1 month and a half after Ufo Boigny's death, they announced the devaluation of the CFA franc. This is what they do to our leaders.
Wow.
So if you don't know that, and you think that you are greater than Ufo Boigny, or you are greater than Kwame Nkrumah, or you are greater than Nelson Mandela. Let me say that because it's a very important element. I hear people talk about Mandela.
Right.
They don't know what happened in South Africa. You think that Mandela is going to spend 27 years in prison to come and allow the Europeans, to exploit South Africa? You think he's stupid? Mandela's first press conference, February 12, 1990. If you have an opportunity, go and then do the research if you never saw that. Mandela's first press conference, February 12, 1990. Mandela spoke about the nationalization of the mining sector in South Africa. Guess what? Buthelezi wanted to be president. Or don't laugh at the CG. Buthelezi wanted to be president. And then the Inkatha ruling party, they realized that Mandela was about to become. You remember the war between the Inkatha and the ANC.
Yeah.
Invisible hand, right.
Orchestrated by the Europeans.
Yep.
The Afrikaners Party giving weapons to Buthelezi.
Yep.
Boycotting the elections. At the same time, they were putting pressure on the African regime to dismantle the nuclear bomb that they gave to South Africa.
Right.
At the same time, They were charming and trying to seduce Nelson Mandela, but weakening his position because black people were divided. It was in that condition that the people we witnessed the transition in South Africa from 1990 to 1994.
Correct.
Scandal of poor Winnie Mandela in the newspaper about many other things, about a relationship. This is what they do.
Right.
And then 1 year before the election, Chris Hani, who was supposed to be the successor of Mandela, was assassinated. 1 year before the election, South Africa was about to go into a civil war. Mandela has to run to the national TV to come and to tell the people, we cannot allow those people to push us, to do a war.
Right.
So this is how Mandela became the president of South Africa. But let me tell you one last thing. How I went to South Africa and people were attacking Mandela. I asked them a question, intellectual, all of them. No one could answer the question. What was that event that made possible the organization of the election in South Africa for Mandela to be president? They could not answer. Guess what? It is when the African regime, for some reason, and I don't know what Mandela did, it was the African regime that sent its tanks into the KwaZulu-Natal. I can give you the title of the documentary, Mandela's Best Fight for Freedom, 2 hours and 17 minutes. Even before you watch the entire documentary, go and watch the last 15 minutes of the documentary.
Mandela's Best Path of Freedom?
Yeah, Mandela's Best Fight for Freedom. Yeah, I can. That's it. It is 2 hours and 70 minutes. I can find you the link if it's not the exact title. It is after Mandela, when Buthelezi was boycotting the election, and then when the Afrikaners regime military, the tanks, when they entered the KwaZulu-Natal, this is how Buthelezi knew that he could not continue on that route. This is how he did like a 180 degrees turn. And this is how he accepted to go to the election. And this is how Mandela became president. My point is, if not for what the Afrikaners army did, there would have been a civil war in South Africa. Probably Mandela would not have been the president or the apostle of peace that we're talking about.
Correct.
Our own weaknesses. But so when people allow you to become president, you think that you're going to say no to everything? Right. No.
Right. So the bigger point, it's very easy for people to say, "Oh, Mandela sell out. Oh, Mandela sell out."
But they don't know the details. They don't know what happened. They did all the things to weaken Mandela. This is what I'm saying. They did all the things to weaken Mandela.
Yes.
He made mistakes when he did not nationalize the mining sector, and he said they needed the money. They said, "Oh, yeah, don't worry." That's what they do too. They have tricks. They said, "Don't worry. We're going to support you to go to the IMF so that they can give you the money that you need."
Right.
The ANC leadership, they sent some people here at the IMF, like 6 months, 1 year training. Can you imagine? In the age of the triumph of what? Neoliberalism.
Right.
You see? And then Mandela got there. Guess what? That's what I'm saying. Let's go and do the numbers. The money that they gave to South Africa when Mandela was president, after all the noise that they were making about Mandela, you cannot even compare that money to the money that they gave to Russia when Russia was moving from the Soviet Union to the neoliberal age. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
Because over there, it's about defeating the Soviet Union. It's about defeating communism. It is about white people. They gave them a lot of money.
Right.
This is how people enrich themselves over there. And many American companies were there. If you don't know that, you cannot even open your mouth to go and talk about Nelson Mandela. So we have to educate ourselves. So this is what I wanted to say about that conversation.
No, well put. So, sister, I mean, should we take some comments that because we only have like 10 minutes left? Are there any? You're muted.
Thank you for that reminder. Most of the questions we have been addressed, but Dr. Lagoke, that documentary, is it Nelson Mandela's Fight for Freedom? I wanted to capture it and put it in the chat.
I think you saw that, right?
He's wearing a gray shirt.
Yes, that's him. 2 hours and 17 minutes.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat. Thank you.
You go watch the last part, and then you can go and watch the entire part. Last 15 minutes. and then you can go and watch the entire documentary.
Only a professor can give you that kind of recommendation.
No,
It's good to be hanging amongst professors.
I'm sorry, my brother.
No worries. I feel the passion. And I think people don't quite do justice to the nuances of political economics and geopolitics. Those nuances are key to understanding how they've been able to ingratiate themselves into the fabric of African governments. One other thing that obviously we've touched on so many aspects, is we also fail to understand that France has on standby 47,000 gendarmes on the African continent that they can easily move. Air transport is easy. They can move them to wherever they need to move them within hours. And so, going back to
you talk about troops.
Yeah.
That was back then. Now they don't even need to move those troops. They have drones.
Exactly. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. And so, when you were talking about how leaders, try to, as much as possible, to navigate the line mine that is French neocolonialism in West Africa. One example springs to mind, which is, what's his name? Silvio Olympio. When they were all signing those pacts, he said, okay, you know what? I don't mind paying the colonial tax, but can I stay out of the CFA? And he wanted to start printing money. Guess what happened to him? He was killed.
Listen, guess what? I don't know if I remember the exact date, but he was supposed to go to France. They said, you know what they said? Don't tell anyone. Listen, this is what they do. Don't tell people, but come to France so that we can sign the agreement, so that you can, go and have your own currency. Listen to the news. They did it on the eve of his trip. On the eve.
They announced?
What that?
They announced that he was going on the eve of his trip.
No, the coup.
The coup happened on the eve of his trip to go.
Guess where he was killed?
Yeah, so
outside the American embassy.
Yeah, so my point is that, listen, let's denounce our leaders. Let's put pressure on them. They have to do the right thing. They have to elevate the standards of governance. We have to demand more. But listen, it is not easy to be a leader of an African country.
Right. I just want to add something to what Brother Adesoji has said about the killing of Olympio. I just learned about another aspect of it, which I wasn't familiar with. I'm reading a book. The title is so racist. Nowadays, they wouldn't say that. The Reds and the Blacks. The implication that, Africans in alliance with,
and Russia.
It's the memoirs of the first U.S. ambassador to Guinea and to Kenya. And in his book, there's actually a section that discusses the killing of Olympio. He had actually managed to get inside the U.S. embassy and had hidden in a parked car, and was alive for several hours. And this junior official from the U.S. embassy, after word got out of what was happening, the army was searching for Olympio. He went to check the compound of the embassy and actually saw Olympio. So rather than
bring him into the building,
his car, and
he
left him there. And that's how he was later caught by the troops.
This is why
and killed.
I
just wanted to add that tidbit.
Thank you for adding that. This is why I keep saying, and I'm seen as radical when I say this. We need to put a pause, send them out of Africa for a minute before we restructure.
Nduku, listen.
Let the guest speak.
Nduku, that's not you talk about the what, and the what is not important here, because all of us, we know the what. The most important thing is the how.
The how.
These are the conversation we're having now.
How do we do that?
Yes.
Listen.
Pack your bags today. Go. We need a meeting, a family meeting. Get out.
What's the title of the book?
Let me
Red and the Blacks.
The Reds and the Blacks. Let me act like the Europeans. Oh, you asked me to go. I'm not leaving.
Oh, hold on. Where are the dogs?
I said, I'm not leaving. I said,
dogs?
this is what they're doing in Niger.
Exactly.
They say leave. They say no, you're not leaving. That we don't even recognize you as the president of the country.
I know.
Yeah. And then, so this was that Babu asked them to leave. They said, we're not leaving. They went, they bombed him, killed thousands of people, and they put him in prison.
So here's the thing. Maybe our
listen. And with the support of many in West Africa who today are fighting against the French. Because all of them, they were supporting the rebellions.
As I say this, right, and as you respond, one of our community members said that we should not talk about these solutions in public, right? But this is something that I've been saying, and I have a friend of mine who says this as well. These people are listening to us all the time. We are so invaded. Our privacy is so invaded by the tech now that I think there's very little that they don't know that is being said, right? You have AIs being built based on how we are speaking in our homes, based on how we are typing on our computers. So I am one who says Africans should come out loud and talk about what they're doing and actually send them memos. This is what we're doing. We're gonna be doing this. Like, there's no more. We cannot hide and pretend, because that's how they get us. We have to do it publicly so that everyone can see it for what it is and they cannot change the narrative. But what do you think about that?
Okay, so for me, I want to. I think I'm going to do the third way, or the way of the middle.
The devil's advocate?
No. Listen to this. For me, This is what I suggest. Because that's why I agree with you partly, right? There was a time when we were talking. Some people say, yes, or if you talk about what we're doing, it's not good. So let's keep it. Like Adesoji said, we navigate, and then when we're in power, and tomorrow now we can do the work. It does not work.
No, it doesn't.
It does not work. So we have
to
talk about what we want to do. You understand? We have to say, you know what? We want to be free. We want to control our resources. We want to talk about sovereignty. I have a young friend. He works at the IMF. One day I was having a conversation with him like 4 years ago, and I was talking about the sovereignty of Africa. And then, because he's with them, he was telling me, no, if you say that you talk about sovereignty, it's like a declaration of war, they will come against you. And I told him that.
Let them come.
I told him that I need to talk about sovereignty. And talk about sovereignty, people need to talk about sovereignty. Even you at the IMF, you need to talk about sovereignty. All of us need to talk about sovereignty.
Right.
Because that's the most important thing for Africa. But if we are afraid that when we use it, we talk about sovereignty, that we come and destroy us, that's not right. So that's everything that I'm doing, that you guys are doing, that's why we're doing that. Because we need to educate many people in Africa. Now, the other side, when it comes to strategy, you don't talk about that in public. You don't talk about that in public. Everything that I'm telling you here that I've been talking about, listen. One thing I can tell you now, though, that I shared that with one of my friends, and then I see it happening. And one day, last time I told me, I said, you see what I was talking about? People were telling me, yes, the first thing that we need to do when we come to power is to tell the French troops or the Americans to leave your country. Remember, people were saying that. I said, no, if you do that, it is okay. But they will come after you. But the best way to do that, I suggest that you bring on the Russians.
Oh, look at you.
And I said that like a couple of years ago.
Strategy.
I said, no, you bring the Russians. When you bring the Russians, the French will go, they will be running away. This is what they did in the Central Africa. They don't want to go, but over there, they lost ground in the Central African Republic. Right. They lost ground in Mali. They lost ground in Burkina Faso because you call the Russians. Because they want to have the exclusive right to control you. They don't want to share anything with any power, let alone like Russians. Correct. You see what I'm saying? So that's one thing I'm saying. So this thing that you don't say that in public. I'm saying that because those African leaders are doing that. That's why I mentioned that.
It's already now in the open.
Yeah, there are many other things we will not talk about here. And then when the time is right, then we can try and do what we think is the right thing for an effective strategy for the African sovereignty.
So we learn and we grow.
I think
Adesoji,
we
you were
should give our
saying.
guests maybe closing comments. Yeah.
Adesoji was gonna say something. We can
So
go a little extra.
you were
Yeah.
mentioning the issue of the money, the elephant in the room, and you mentioned the book by Saba. This book,
African's last colonial currency, the CFA from Chile.
Yes. What's his name? The Senegalese boy, Ndongo.
Ndogo, yeah.
Yes.
It is brilliant. It is brilliant.
No, there are listen, but there are many. Like I said, people are doing work.
I must get the brother to sign it. He was brilliant.
Yeah, but it's brilliant, yes.
Yeah. No.
There are many other books like that. Yes, people are doing work. So, but people don't know. So, because we don't even share information, people think that Africans are not working.
See, that's the thing. Yeah. That's why we need to say it publicly. It empowers Africans.
I agree with you.
Thank you. So, Dr. Lagoke, any last words before we go? And thank you so much for joining us as always.
No, listen,
you really do enrich in the conversation.
Let's say the first day I saw you, and I saw that you were Milton Allimadi's friend.
I know, I'm a beautiful African woman. A beautiful, strong, fearless African woman.
One thing I like about Milton is first of all, he's knowledgeable and he's humble.
Yes.
Yeah, he's humble. He's not because listen, I have a problem with arrogant Africans. Yes, Milton is humble. So, like I said again, and I will say the way we met, you have to be humble to do what he did. I was really, really touched. Though he does not know that.
Tell that story quickly, because I did like it. Please tell it quickly. That's okay. That story needs to be said.
So, there was a crisis, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Niger, and I have some other people. I have some other groups attacking the junta, and they think that the military are doing the wrong thing. So because of the propaganda, so Milton somehow was supposed to be debating my position. Correct. So I was invited. So we went. So we have January 28, 2011, and then we were on the panel, and then Milton and I we were saying almost the same thing. People were surprised. people were surprised. And
but because Brother Milton did his research on you, right?
No. It's not even on me. It's not even on me. He did the research on the crisis. Correct. Yeah, because it's not so much about me. Mm-hmm. And then people tell him, say, Milton, he was supposed to attack you.
So he stood by truth, not necessarily the fight, the agenda.
Milton even said, I can find that video. He even said during the conversation, he said, before coming here, this was my position. Correct. I did research, and this is what I found out. Right. So this how since that time we connected. But not many people are like him though. Right? That's why I say he's humble. I will not say a name because I'm not going to say a name, but there's a great professor, a great activist in the Pan-African community. I debated with, and he was defending the Ouattara's position and then the European position. And I was defending the position of African sovereignty, that there was imperialism in Ivory Coast, and the guy was trying to dismiss everything that I was saying. We had that debate. And then fast forward, today, that great scholar who thought that there was no neo-colonialism in the case of Ivory Coast, that Babo was using that narrative to cling to power. The same person today gave an interview recently saying that we need to fight against French neo-colonialism and American colonialism, and the case is the same thing.
He's done more learning and reading. He owes you a
phone call.
That's what he needs to do.
Let's say he owes me a phone call, and I've been waiting. I don't even think I will receive it. So to conclude, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. We need to be able. I know many people are doing that. I think some. We are not many, so we need to have time for that kind of conversation. And then if tomorrow you want some other scholars, our friends at Lincoln,
yes, please.
We need to have that debate. That's why I love that show, seriously. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to flatter you. I'm not saying that because you are inviting me,
Thank you.
because those media, those international media, they control the narrative.
Right.
They can invite you. There are things they don't want you to say.
Exactly.
They have a written script for you.
The written script. Some of them may sometimes give us opportunity to talk, but the way we're talking like this, they will not allow that to happen. The French media, the American media during the war in Ukraine, or the crisis in Niger, they will not invite Milton, they will not invite me. They will invite people, even if you start talking like Milton and Gnaka or Adesoji, then they will cut you off because they don't want the public to hear that. They try to control the narrative. So by the work you do, you are contributing to the decolonization of the narrative.
Correct.
And then that's why we welcome the existence of the BRICS, because it's going to be a counterforce to the hegemony of the West.
Correct.
But still, friends, to quote one scholar from Tunisia, Fadel Kadoub, who said that we need a sort of praising the de-dollarization of the economy.
I agree.
But he is in favor, and I agree with him, of the decolonization of the world economy.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
if you do the decolonization and then the economic structure is going to be the way it is, or you replace the West by the East, or you replace the West by Russia and then China, and then they continue to extract our mineral resources, we have not brought prosperity to the world or to the colonized people or in the world.
Absolutely.
So that's why I add that there should be a new paradigm that should inform conflict resolution, that should inform the decolonization of the economy, that should inform the de-dollarization, and then that that paradigm should be based on humaneness, on humanness. In the case of Africa, we call that Ubuntu philosophy. In India, that is what Indira Gandhi used to continue to do his struggle. It is called Satyagraha, hold fast to the truth. In Brazil, they have Bolsa Familia that Lula put into place in order to take out of poverty 20 million people, like in Brazil. And then in the case of China, even though they talk about communism, the civilization of China is built on what? Confucianism. And then in the case of Russia, they have a concept called over there, they're called MIR, M-I-R, which means village, nation, or community. Those 5 concepts that I mentioned exist in each of those 5 founding countries of the BRICS. And then if they're really serious about changing the paradigm, not only they should decolonize the economy, they should help African countries develop, or some other countries in the world, and they should embrace an African, that the value system that we can find in the countries, which is based on humanness. This is how we can build like a better world based on equality, justice, and then shared prosperity. So that is my closing. These are my closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really great. Thank you so much, brothers. We leave it there.
We leave it there. I just want to provide, by the way, the name of that professor at the Howard. Jean-Michel Mabeko.
Oh yeah, he's from Congo.
Okay.
And then it is from Congo, and then the Congolese country, they suffer. Everything you see in Niger or Ivory Coast, they suffer from that. When Lissouba was president and he wanted to go towards the Chinese, the French supported like a civil war. This is how Comrade Sassou Nguesso came to power.
Came back
to power.
Okay. No, we could be here all day talking about these things. Thank you so much. Asante sana. Thank you to the community for joining us. Thank you for contributing in the chat. Again, you can reach us by sending us an email, kumbukeni1@gmail.com. We have not been getting responses for the proposal that Brother Milton put out, that we're going to be gathering and doing journalistic analysis. We only have one response, so we haven't started that. You can join our Patreon family on patreon.com/Kumbukeni. You can support us here by subscribing at youtube.com/ at Kumbukeni One. Let's get loud, let's get loud, let's get loud and consistent. Siku njema.
Kwaheri.